Hello, welcome back. Thanks for joining me again for section 2. You've come to this section after learning hopefully a little bit about some symptoms that you're experiencing. And those symptoms are as a result of anxiety. You have a bit of a, let's say, a disorder to your anxiety. Now, anxiety is perfectly normal. It's a perfectly normal human emotion. And it's there to keep us safe. So again, you're not a million miles away from being perfectly normal in the way you deal with and handle anxiety. The difference in your particular case is that you're getting a level of anxiety which is inappropriate. And that's to say that your anxiety is triggered and giving you symptoms when they really shouldn't be there. Anxiety need not be there. And you'll know in your heart of hearts that you are in a safe situation when you have these anxiety attacks. But your brain will be telling you that you need to fight or flight, get away from a situation or fight your way out of it. In thinking type phobias, that can be that you need to think your way out of and try and work out and resolve a situation through a lot of hard work and effort with thinking. So, anxiety is normal and it's natural. And when you think about why we get anxious, it's purely to keep us focused and safe. That's the aim of anxiety within us. So when we get anxious, our brains, thankfully, are able to make physiological and biomechanical changes within our body to get us ready to either fight or flee predators or danger. Now, if you think about it, perhaps if you were to walk through a jungle where you knew there were going to be lions and tigers, you would need to be focused. You wouldn't be able to wander through there aimlessly, taking in the plant life and the bees and the birds and having a chat with your mate alongside you, because you know that there would be potentially something there that could kill you. So you would have to have your senses attuned not to the other little things around you, but to the important things. So your ears would become attuned, your eyesight would be a lot more kind of critically looking at the shadows, the places that the tiger may come from. You'd be listening out for the rustling in the bushes. So your senses become very, very focused on the job in hand, which is to keep you safe. And your heart rate would raise. Your hormonal changes, the controlling the heart rate, your adrenaline levels would alter, and you'd feel the heart rate change. You'd feel the heart beating harder, push more blood per beat. You'd feel the beats more. You might even feel it banging away right up, up high towards your throat area. You'd feel the hormonal changes. That sort of feeling of butterflies when you're a bit nervous. Those would kind of take over. Your muscle. The blood flow to the muscles, your veins and your capillaries and your arteries, they would all change and shunt blood to areas that were perhaps more appropriate to enable you to flee quickly if you had to. You might even feel a little bit weak and shaky as blood drained away from certain areas. You might feel like you needed to go to the toilet because again, if you're going to have to run away from a tiger, you don't want to be worrying about digesting lunch. So there'd be this feeling that you needed to evacuate your bowels. You would feel perhaps clammy. Your skin would be cool. It would feel a bit, maybe potentially, you'd look pale. So the blood would be draining away from the periphery, from the skin, concentrating on the job that's important, which is to keep you safe. So what we're saying is that anxiety, when you're properly anxious and in a stressful situation, huge physiological and biological changes will happen to your body, and you'll feel them, and they can be pretty intense feelings. Now, anxiety then is there to keep you safe. It's important. Can you imagine, and we're going to talk now about inappropriate anxiety, can you imagine being in the jungle and the guide says to you, your tour guide says to you, look, don't worry, there haven't been any tigers or lions in this jungle for 3,000 years. They died out by famine, many hundreds of years ago. We don't have them here anymore. Well, then you could go through the jungle, enjoying the scenery and the birds and the plants and chatting to your friend and do all those things and just enjoying the experience without the risk of being eaten by a tiger. But what would happen if you remained watchful? If you learned to just keep on watching for the tiger? You knew in your heart that, okay, fine, that they're not around, I've been told, and I accept that at face value, but I'm going to carry on looking anyway because I'm frightened about it. And you would then potentially waste the experience of being in the jungle because you would be just potentially obsessing about something that you knew in your heart of hearts you weren't going to be seeing. You might feel all those same bodily sensations if you decided that you weren't going to accept the face value that your tour guide has told you, but you're going to carry on looking, and you're going to allow your body to be absolutely anxious about something that you know is unlikely to be seen in the extreme. Well, that's inappropriate anxiety, and it happens with people in all sorts of situations. They continue to be anxious even though they know in their heart that there's nothing really to worry about. And that's what you're experiencing. Really, it's inappropriate anxiety, and it's a learned thing. You've learned how to be anxious, and the symptoms come because of this kind of snowballing of anxiety and symptom. And you're looking at the symptoms, and the anxiety builds. The anxiety builds, so the symptoms get worse, and the whole thing builds and escalates and snowballs to the point where, where's the end? It takes you to the point where you feel kind of almost like you're at death's door. I mean, it can be horrific. The feelings can be incredibly frightening. And all it is inappropriate anxiety, which is triggered by this snowballing of emotion, the anxiety of emotion. So, again, you're not a million miles away. We just need to learn how to break the link down. We need to teach you how to stop being anxious about the symptom, and the symptom just evaporates. Again, we talked about in the last section that if the fear comes away from your symptom, if the fear is taken out of the equation, the whole thing melts away. Okay? And the methods and the techniques that you've been trying to find on your own to do this, they don't work. They can't work. It doesn't work by fighting it. You can't control it. There's a different way that you do it. And we're going to come to that a bit later on. But in the meantime, remember, again, I'm going to repeat this again, there's nothing wrong with anxiety. Those sensations that you feel are perfectly normal. They're what you need to feel in a certain situation, in certain, appropriate situations. It's just that at the moment, you're experiencing them in inappropriate situations. Before we end, I'm just going to talk about arousal, because of course we're all, throughout the course of the day, and depending on what we're doing, we're all aroused to different levels. And you wake up in the morning, you're pretty sleepy and groggy, and you get off to work and you walk out onto the road, and again, you need to be a bit aroused. There's you can't be half asleep when there's buses whizzing up and down and people on bikes and horns honk. So we get aroused according to the level of potential danger around us. Now, we don't see that as massively dangerous, because of course it's not massively dangerous, but we do just need to be a little bit awake and alive to the fact that there's stuff moving around, and we need to watch and listen out for danger. And the more we get used to scenarios, the more we become acceptance that, okay, we know what we do in these scenarios, and so we can then switch off again. But for new scenarios and new situations, our anxiety levels go up, and again, it's perfectly normal. That's what we'd expect. And then the more you do, then the more you relax a little bit, and it's not so, the requirement for a level of arousal drops away again. But to allow these things to build and get more and more, and go from a state of increased arousal into a state of anxiety, and then potentially even panic, when we know that all we're doing is walking along the road and things are perfectly safe, or we're in a jungle where there's no tigers, to allow that to build and build and build and snowball all the way up to panic, that's inappropriate. So we'll talk in the next section about how to cure this panic, how to cure the anxiety when it's inappropriate. Okay, and you don't need a lesson. You don't need to know when it's appropriate and when it's inappropriate. You know, if something is dangerous and it's in front of you, then you'll deal with it. You will just deal with it. But at the moment, you're finding this troubling symptom because the anxiety is inappropriate. Okay? So, take some time. Again, I want you to move on to the next section now, which is section 3, where I'm going to just talk you through how to switch off inappropriate anxiety. It's really simple to do, but you need to understand. So really listen into kind of what I'm saying, and I guarantee you it works. Okay? I'll see you there. Thanks.